All right, so let's call to order the June 4, 2024 work session of the Lower Sauer Township Board of Supervisors. If everyone could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the state of one nation under God, indivisible. Thank you. That brings us to our first public comment on the agenda. Yes, first and only. Is there anyone wishing to be recognized? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Public Works Director, Doug.
Good morning, thank you. So an update on the projects, still working on the closeout process for the street light replacement project. Kind of did a little bit of a lull right now, but keep pushing through on that. The garage lease at 804 Harleysville Pike, solicitor is working on final details for the insurance requirements. Hopefully we'll have that nailed down next day or so, because I know it's really looking to have us in there, have the lease in place, so.
I thought it was gonna kind of happen right after that meeting. That's interesting. They still
Yeah.
haven't found a up there.
The issues were, but they're still trying to get it done.
Levels of insurance, our insurance carrier, make sure that they have their insurance, their property insurance in place. So there just needs to be some language added that they have to have the appropriate property insurance.
Bergen Mill Road Bridge, it's a Monco Roads and Bridge project. The contract was awarded to H&K. It was $4.4 million. Next lowest bid was 7.1. There's left a good amount on the table there. But anyway, as part of that project, there's a section of trail that's supposed to be constructed in the park. This was kind of an agreement that we came to for payment in lieu of the right-of-way acquisition for the bridge project to happen. $20,000 agreement that the county is willing to pay towards the construction of the trail. Unfortunately, the bid cost for the trail came in at $100,000, which I think we estimated at 61,000. Stephanie, is that correct? That's correct. So we've got a big gap. There's, like, if you can pull up that spreadsheet. Sorry.
I was gonna pull up the plan.
Smaller one from the name cell. You shrink that over to the left. You know what I'm saying? Cell C in the spreadsheet itself.
Sure.
Right. But there you go. So now the numbers are visible. So you can see there's some bid items that are just, I don't know. In my mind, they're just kind of way out of whack. There's a $25,000 clearing and grubbing. There's very little clearing and grubbing to be done on this project, almost nothing. And then you get down to even the topsoil is, $28,000. So there are 3 items on there that are just that look to be excessive. The excavation isn't necessarily out of whack, but just some of the other items are. So we're just trying to, Stephanie and I were talking about, how do we move forward, get something done and without just kind of paying an exorbitant amount of money for this trail.
Is just so I'm clear, that's the bid from H&K?
That's the bid for the trail
That
portion
part
of
of,
the contract.
oh, did they bid that out with the bridge?
Correct.
Okay. And Doug, I remember you and Stephanie doing this. We had talks about it even as well. It's not like this is roughly. You guys really broke it down to get an accurate count. So, what is the next step if they are excessive?
Can we bid it out ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, we can do the work ourselves as well. So I mean, it could be some combination of, I think we have the flexibility. Part of the challenge is dealing with the county. And
Can they just give us the 20 grand and we'll go on our merry way?
I think that would probably be an
Even if
option.
it's a direct reimbursement of, we, you guys do work and we prove it out, then they reimburse us for it or something.
The easiest thing to do might be just to pick one of the line items, maybe it's the excavation line item, have them do that work. And then we pay the additional over and above the 20,000, which will be a minimal expense, and then we take over the project from there. And then I think we have some negotiating power with AGK, because I'm sure they're gonna wanna use the park for.
Well, I was gonna say, they're gonna probably want
Construction
something from
trail,
us.
stay down there.
Yeah.
Thing they did on Camp Wawa, so I think we'd have some negotiating power with them to try to make these numbers more manageable and try to get more of the project completed on their dime instead of the township's nickel.
It's a shame that they're $3 million off from the next bidder, that they put so much on this.
Should they make it up?
Just look at- If they bite, great, if not,
Has the trail been parked in the field?
no, it is not,
Okay.
but in the specifications, there was a provision for us to walk the trail. Now, I understand. Yeah, so you're kind of flying blind a little bit.
If I do this.
They did the calculation of the length of trail by the width of it and did a growth.
Took a look down through the
Yeah.
park and said, do some work down there,
Yeah,
which obviously won't be the case.
Right. So, yeah, so I think at this point, my recommendation would be we go back to county and say, yeah, we're just gonna pick and choose what we think is appropriate and then go from there. And then, just Stephanie and I, we're just talking about this yesterday. We just want to make sure the board's in agreement with the direction that we want to head.
Yeah.
I appreciate the effort to presenting it to us.
Well, that's,
Okay, very good.
There's one more question about, since I brought up the differentiation of the bids, you don't have any concerns with a bidder, that difference, there's nothing concerning price wise.
I'm not intimately familiar with the bid, so I don't know the specs, so I don't know
That's more.
if they missed something or the other bidders anticipated something that was, or maybe it's just a workload issue, maybe it's just I'm right around the corner kind of an issue and
not
my.
letting anybody else get it.
Well,
Yeah.
You know, yeah,
They did the Camp Wawa Bridge as well.
they did. So,
Thank you.
2024 road program, there was an updated list of the roads. Yeah, I'd inadvertently put last year's list of roads in the golf course in there, so I changed that. So that's there for you. Cape Seal tentatively scheduled for late June, early July. Nova Chip will be later this summer, don't have a definite schedule for that. And the base repair contract and also paving of Indian Creek Road, tentatively scheduled for late July as well. Department activities continue to do base repairs on various roads in preparation for the resurfacing program and also just to improve the roads. Camera poles and the conduit were installed at Oliver Park, so at this point, we're awaiting for the Pico to energize the transformer and the and set a meter so that we can then power the cameras. Working on a solution for our algae issue at Briarwick Pond. You're aware that that pond is fed from the sewer plant discharge. So we've got nutrient-rich environment that during hot periods in the summer and low flow conditions, it's just creates a problem. So we're looking into solar powered, either a bubbler or a fountain. So getting some mixed opinions on that. But additionally, we've talked previously about doing a floating treatment wetlands. Ryan at the Perkiomen Watershed Conservancy has done a pilot project up at Green Lane. Like, pull up the pictures, please. This is. It's an up close and right behind me, you're just below that box there. There's actually a duck that's nesting on the island.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
Next picture, Mike. So this is Ryan's own design. He came up with it and with a 3D printer, he's able to fabricate the pieces. And he's willing to assist us with, another demonstration project. That we could launch at Briarlake. The idea is that these plants will,
Nutrient uptake.
exactly. And what they're looking to do is, at the end of each season, is to harvest the plants and then use them as their starting plants in their projects where the new construction where the soil typically doesn't have a lot of nutrients. So each year it will be a fresh batch of plants. It's not the most attractive.
It's beautiful.
I'm sorry?
It's beautiful.
Okay.
It's better looking than algae.
Compared to the algae.
That was, put together through, their high school volunteers.
That's great.
Yeah, so I think it would be a nice little amenity, nice little, thing to try and do at Briarwick, so. If the board's okay with that, I'll continue working with Ryan and get something done,
I
hopefully in the next, by the middle of summer. hopefully.
think it's fantastic. I have one question, just to see the rope there, and I'm not against it still, but maybe signs or something. My concern would be for fishing. If anybody casts and gets stuck to that, I wouldn't want somebody going out there pulling it off. And I'm just curious if there's a constant rope or if this is something that sits in the middle, just. How would we work? Maybe have a sign. if we
It's
were gonna
tethered.
do this.
Cause they're gonna drag that off the water.
Yeah.
In the fall.
So is that something we might wanna alert fishermen to, or? Cause that's something that obviously,
I thought just put the stainless steel cable and then just, it would be immediately by the island, wouldn't be
okay,
tethered from shore that fishermen would get their lines tangled in, so I think there's ways that we can work.
no,
on
that's
that.
absolutely, and that's why I was curious, and that one, it looks like it's going to the shore.
Yeah.
Yes,
We can, at the current board meeting, we can discuss with Ryan, possibly, it might be great to have a sign that just says.
and that's what I'm thinking, maybe just to let people aware, I love the idea.
Educational time.
Immediate thing.
Perfect.
And yeah, and even if we have the education, maybe even just beside it to say, the fishermen, there's a lot of
Right.
people, it's great information, but don't know.
Yeah,
what you get
put
out
something
there.
on the fishing here. Okay,
I think it's great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hiring process, so offers of employment tethered to, 2 new employees and they were accepted. So Brad Neckel will be starting tomorrow. And then Justin Taylor will be starting on June 17th. There are 2 new full-time, employees. This year we have, the luxury of 5 summer employees. Of 2 returning and 3 new.
Are they all a luxury or are they?
Actually, they're doing well.
Okay.
Summer help.
Our summer help, if they can wind the hose up properly by the end of the summer, we're pretty happy.
You've got a good crop of
Good.
young men this year, so,
Great.
hoping that a few of them will return next year, so that's the goal.
Good to have the return.
Keep getting trained, right?
Exactly.
2 of yours have been, what, 3 years? Jake
Jake's
and.
been here 3 years, Tyler's, is second,
Yeah, that's good.
it's good, so we're working on getting them trained, and, we did CPR first aid training for everybody last week, and got, the flagger certification work zone training scheduled for them next week, that's gonna be held here. So, once we have them trained, then we're more comfortable putting them out. Putting them in the works so that they can assist with projects, so. That is all that I have. We have.
How did the tree falling go in Alderfer Park?
Great.
Good.
Yeah, and we actually spent the next several days. Removing additional trees so that, just the guys could put to practice what they learned during the training, and, we took down a bunch of trees and sizable trees, so I was impressed with what we were able to accomplish.
Good, that's great.
Yeah,
And has that wood been moved over to? like,
Not all of it.
Not all of it, but it's going to be.
Yeah.
Gross now? No,
Birdie Mill, yeah, the upper lot of Birdie Mills.
thank you.
Kind of we made that our community woodpile.
Thanks.
Two questions about football fields. Back on Walmart, look like they're growing in beautifully.
Yeah.
Looks like you got a good, that's a good base on it. Alderfer Fields, the new ones. Where are we with that with the developer and
We met with the developer, the contractor, and also brought in a professional, the turf grass professional. They're in pretty good shape, they
Good.
really are. The field themselves, in between the field, it's a different kind of grass, so it kind of looks weird. But that's something we can deal with, you know, after the fact, because we're not gonna be able to get them to reseed that in a different seed at this point. But we're looking at, managing the field during this growing season. And then see where we are come September and possibly an additional seeding, overseeding and some, fertilization and lime and, you know, that kind of stuff. They're also doing weed treatment on there to keep the clover out. So they're managing those fields pretty aggressively. So I would expect by, late this fall or early next year that they're gonna look to turn those over. Now the question becomes, do we let the,
I was gonna say,
the
what
youth
season are we
organization-
targeting for use of those? Are we going one more season?
We're hesitant to commit to that, I mean, till we see what happens. But I don't think we wanna make sure it's ready.
But
Well, I think what we want to try to avoid is the situation we ran into with Park Avenue. And I realize that, you know, football's a completely different use than soccer. The intensity and it's right there at the 50-yard line and, you know, and the sidelines just really take a beating, especially if you get a rain event. Then, you know, that's what really hurt the fields. So, yeah, we will have to make a judgment call as to whether or not we want to let them spring or wait another year.
But we are not excited to get somebody on the field till we see the grass is established. I mean, this was a rough start in the park, so we wanna not have a rough start out there too.
But I was pleasantly surprised. We met out there a couple of weeks ago.
this has been a good spring.
Pleasantly surprised at how, the lack of, you know, bare spots.
Good.
There were, I mean, we probably have at least 85-90% coverage there, so, I think with good time and good weather and some additional attention that'll fill in, it'll be a nice field once they're ready to be turned over for play.
Awesome. Anything else for Doug? Excellent, thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Medwin.
Yes, sir. Soliciting ordinance, has, been revised. Ready on time. For tomorrow night.
Robert, we'll get it to you today.
Oh, good.
But we figure we'd like to try to get it in place as soon as possible, only because the summer, you're gonna be in the height of soliciting. But basically, the language is added about the signage, no soliciting in places that are showing that sign says no soliciting. A lot of the old antiquated language about who could and who couldn't has been moved entirely. The $25 fee has been removed and replaced with the Board of Supervisors will establish a fee via resolution, because frankly, the $25 fee was, you know, woefully inadequate.
Yeah.
So when we, obviously, you'll amend we'll get this done before the 24-hour, and then when we look to adopt in July, will we also have a amendment to the fee schedule so we can adopt the fee at the same time?
Yeah.
Otherwise, Country Fair report, much like previous years. We did have more hours, last year we were 222, this year, 247. We're up to 15 officers there. We had a few incidents, so they needed every school. They think allowed to put people out there. We were pretty fortunate the last few years, with the 0 incidents, so we did have a few juveniles cited fighting, and people were underage drinking, both for interfering with an arrest. Obviously, most of these restraints were out of towners, but a couple people were following up on. And a lot of, system we got was from the new camera system. Of, installed in first telephone. Which was actually, a way to lure another two groups of girls, one luring the other one into the field for yet another fight. So, and all captured. The informal debriefings, there's one or two. Placement. Rides, et cetera, better. Conducive to crowd control. And obviously the weather is about perfect. For the JCs.
The camera system that they installed, it's consistent with our system here, so they can see them in the cars at the station, in the tapes.
I'd just like to commend the chief and the entire force for doing a fantastic job. There were some challenging times out there, and I thought it was handled very professionally and quickly. Thank you.
I heard from several people who witnessed some of those activity around the fireworks and whatnot and said, yeah, they were about to start, the police were all over and they just didn't let them blossom, which was
Very
great.
fortunate.
Yeah.
Pushing and shoving started.
Yes.
You look around, to the floor, pick up a newspaper, somebody else is canceling the fair this year.
Oh, yeah.
Something obviously we want to keep in the community. Being the first one of the season, there's a lot of venting going. And they're still in school, so the school wants to meet that. Remember my first fair, it was the yellow bandana gang. That showed up, and fortunately for us, they all wore their yellow bandanas. Collected them into a group, got them to the bandanas, burned them around. We got a lot of flack for that, newspapers, outstanding press. But they've done better, but that was, it is really a effort.
Oh,
That's all I have.
Very good.
Thank you.
I think we all can, thank you.
I never let it be said.
I will only comment, so we're coming around the parade, forgetting which officer was in it, in the four-wheeler or your cart, what do you have, the nice green one? Well, it was so warm that day and there was no ventilation getting in there. I think he had shrunk 2 sizes in his uniform driving around in it, so you might need a little fan in there next time. Yeah.
Made it to the end of the parade.
He didn't make it all the way around, he was sort of stopped halfway. Needs ventilation in the cab.
Anything else for the chief? Mr. Busey.
Chairman, so last month we had a record amount of permits that were issued, 114 recreation funds. It's quite an increase from our average, which is typically somewhere around 60, 70 permits. We also received yesterday an application for zoning hearing. It's for a 2-car detached garage that is proposed to be located closer to the side yard than require setback. It's at 193 Kinsey Road, and the proposed setback is 25. So I'm currently processing that application, and it looks like it's going to be a July zoning hearing board. However, if he signs a waiver to waive that PC timeline, it might be August.
So the setback is 25 feet. What's the relief? See, looking for.
I need to look into that.
Okay. Just curious.
So tomorrow, the only thing from a land development perspective that will be on the agenda is the planning module, component 1 for 785 Crestman, which you guys approved back in January. It's that 3-lot subdivision. Yeah, that's all I have for you.
Excellent. Any questions for Michael? Very good. Mr. Jacasky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item on the manager's report is the review of the May 1st, 2024 meeting minutes. Questions, corrections, additions?
Unfinished business C, Chairman and Berman.
I've been called worse.
That's all I say.
You. The next item is the agenda for tomorrow. Under new business component 1, planning module 785 Creston Road subdivision. Proclamation for Montgomery County Commissioners EMS Week. And fire police assistance for the South Canary School District graduation ceremony on June 6th. Upper Suffolk Township, Philadelphia Folk Festival, August 15th through August 18th. Upper Suffolk Old Goshard Hop and Oyster Picnic, September 7th. Upper Suffolk Township Big Bad Bonfire, October 12th. We're adding under D would be the authorization to advertise the new solicitation ordinance. Next item is the Route 113 alternate route shared use path phase 1 design proposal, and Stephanie's here to discuss that.
Here
Good.
and there.
Yeah, here and there. Good morning. So yes, I'm going to talk about the 113 shared use path proposal. Just a brief update. Since the last time you saw me talking about this, we did send the revised scope of work to DCED, which was approved. So they have agreed with the revised scope of work, which matches the funding award of 600,000. And they've also, I believe the agreement is fully executed at this point. It is a reimbursement agreement. So what happens is once the costs are incurred, on a regular basis, those payment requests would be submitted back to DCED with proof of payment. And then the township would be reimbursed up to the $600,000 amount over the life of the grant. This proposal does assume the process for using federal funds for construction, which, as you recall, we submitted 3 different applications for community projects, which would be federal funding. And then obviously the process, we can modify it if that construction funding source does not come through or if the funding source changes in any way. At this point, the survey and the environmental clearance is for the full length of the project area, both phase 1 and phase 2, as we discussed. But the preliminary engineering and final design would be for the shared use path phase 1 only, which extends from Schlosser Road up to Morris Road. We will be having to go through the design process for post-construction stormwater management and an NPDES permit due to the acreage and limit of disturbance for this section of the project. I think it's estimated at roughly 2 acres. We would start obviously with the survey and the early environmental work while the community project funding applications are still being reviewed. I think we anticipate a September timeline for announcements of those applications, but that would give us time to proceed with the survey. And like I said, start with the early environmental studies. And then once we hear about that, then we would be able to dive deeper into the preliminary engineering phase. Again, the scope essentially matches everything that was submitted to DCED, both with the preliminary engineering, the final design, as well as task 5, which is the traffic analysis portion, which was discussed to be done to really determine the warrants and justify, or ultimately decide what the intersection configurations and the travel lanes of a future roadway would look like, given the current conditions that are out there today, which was really as a result of our previous study that was done. The primary focus of this proposal is really the shared use path connection. I will also add that we did submit on Friday the Greenways Trails application, which was for the phase 2 portion of the shared use path. So I'll say certain pieces of the puzzle may start, are starting to come together. We are proposing NTM Engineering as our sub consultant for the environmental clearance phase. They've worked on Ruth Road. We work with them regularly, and they're very familiar, obviously, with the environmental clearance process and going through the steps and procedures that are needed to seek that. And with the potential of federal dollars, that obviously gets extra scrutiny. So I think those are the highlights.
Stephanie,
Yes.
quick question, just on under preliminary engineering activities, you have a budget of $180,000, but the direct costs for soil testing, borings, et cetera. Since our total engineering subtotal is the amount of the grant, if you have to do any of those, we're over. Is there an anticipation you're gonna have to do those? And would Bowman be willing to include those as part of the 180,000 for the cost of this?
So we did write those as additional, simply because we don't know how many would need to be done. It's very difficult to scope that at this time until we've had preliminary meetings with the Conservation District and go through that. So it's pretty tight for the 180, I'll say, given the length of 2,800 feet of trail, and also considering the horizontal alignment of the road that we've got to account for, even though that's not really being designed. So until we know what that scope of work would need to be from the Conservation District, it's kind of hard to judge that.
Oh, but you can do it. I mean, it's a certain number of tests per acre of disturbance. I mean,
It is, but with a linear project,
linear trail,
it becomes a little bit more challenging. So we can certainly look at that at that time once we have a better layout of where even the stormwater features would be. At this point, we have a linear section. I think we would use the right of way that we have at this point for any kind of features. We have to look at, is it a vegetative swale? Is there going to need to be any kind of MRC basin? Those kinds of things. I will say I have a proposal for another project with like 28 infiltration test pits, and it came in at $28,000.
right? Well,
So-
that's what we know we're gonna need to do it
Mhm.
in order to get the permit. But we don't have any budget for it, and then our budget's already up to what the grant amount is. So we know we're gonna go over, is what it comes down to.
There is a good chance there will be some extra costs associated when you're budgeting out for a preliminary and final design project of this size. It's going to be very challenging without some expenses. I would agree. We're not going to do those test pits. We have to have somebody else come and do those test pits. And it's hard to get that cost at this point when I don't have anything to share with them to scope it out.
Kind of say the same on our end. It's harder to get a decision when we don't know the exact costs as well.
Well, what I'm sort of thinking is, I guess this is their proposal. We don't have a budget for this. I mean, it'd be nice to have at least it's not a not to exceed number, but at least a targeted number of, you said 25 to 28,000. Is it $30,000 that gets thrown in there as at least that thing gives us a starting point, rather than whatever we're doing is going to be more than what you've proposed right now. Whereas if we put 28 or 30 in there, it's going to be maybe that number, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but at least there's something to work off of.
The alternative would be to authorize task 1, 2, and 3, and we're not gonna authorize task 4 and 5 until we have answers on those pieces.
3 is still to be determined, right?
You mean,
No, because once you do 3, you're gonna know.
but the issue with, because, and 3D though would require the direct cost, so we can put some of this money up into that, I think that's
An option.
I think, I think certainly 1, 2, and 3 is a good start to get us the footprint and what it is that we need to do, and be able to then, if we can, shift around some of the others. I would actually say 1, 2, 3, and 5, because the traffic is a task that came out of the study, right? That is a question relative to this overall project, right? The grant was for the overall project, and so I would say that the traffic task is one that, I think
You can wait.
would help with the
Do we wanna
general
get the-
public response.
It doesn't, if we're only gonna do a couple of these, it doesn't really matter. If you put a budget number, they're gonna come back with a hard number.
Okay.
So,
So my only reasoning is brand purpose, it's not. Okay, okay. Then I'm fine with that if you wanna.
so I propose we authorize Bowman to proceed with task 1, 2, and 3. And then upon consideration of 3, once it's known, look for what the boring costs are gonna be, and then we'll decide about task 4 and 5 at that time.
Another question I have too, and Joe, you might be able to help too, the right of way, I noticed a lot of wording with the right of way, and I know that that's, a lot of that's standard. How much of a concern is that? It was my understanding, and especially like looking at it, we've seen the maps, you know, since I've been in this capacity where I've seen it laid out. Is there concerns for right of way? Are there concerns for right of way?
There's one parcel that I have the primary concern with on Morris Road, which is where that house was built, and we don't have the research done on that property to know what right of way exists along Morris Road for that section of trail. The
That's a
rest of the
connection.
right,
I
Correct.
of the 13 relocation.
Got it.
it's the section, the section that would tie into the trail that's along the frontage of the apartment development.
Oh, you said that the new house is built next to where the apartments are proposed.
Okay, right, yeah, okay. Is that, and I know there was one property with the bypass, if there would have been, that was still right of way, but I didn't know that.
Landis 1.
Landis 113, I didn't know if that fell into this path as much.
No,
No.
that does not.
Would. I was curious as to. Okay,
That would
I
be
would
phase
second.
2.
thank you.
I'll second Mr. Berman/Bergman's.
Whatever I have today.
Motion.
In second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Steph.
Thank you very much.
Next item under the manager's report is the Stalbert Quarter remediation project, and Holly will give you an update.
Everyone.
Yep.
I think Sharon Fang of the EPA gave me a call and let me know that the bid has been awarded for the remediation project at the quarry. It is going to a company called Conti, the Conti Group, and I believe they're in New Hope, I think is where the Conti Group is located. But there is still quite a bit of footwork that needs to be done. They need to have obviously they're required to have a public open house on what's going to be happening there. So they will be coordinating that. It will be within this building, not sure when. They are also going to be doing mailers to everyone in the area so that they are aware of what is happening. And they will also obviously be having a pre-construction meeting with members of the township, members with EPA, Conti, and I would probably say anybody else. I would agree, maybe Michelle Fountain should probably be there as well. And they will be closing the road permanently, as was discussed previously when we met with them. We were hoping that it would have been done sooner so that we would not, but they would have timeframes to get more of the project completed prior to school starting in August, but it's not going to be starting until August. So we will be dealing with the detour for school transportation.
And is the detour route using Upper Mainland Road to circle around the official detour route?
Yeah. It's the same detour route that we used when we did the bridge repairs there on Quarry Road.
Okay.
She did not provide me with a time frame of how long it would take to get the project done. I'm guessing that's all going to be, I mean, we have not received a copy of the contract to know if there's anything specifically in there that says, you know, by such and such a date, the project should be completed. So I'm guessing those are things we can get, we can learn when we're at pre-con, but it's also something that if anybody has any questions, Sharon is great, and she can, I think I put her email and her phone number in the email so that if anybody wants to contact her directly, they can. But we're looking at sometime this August.
I remember they gave an approximate time frame when she was here before. And I don't remember what it was, but I knew it was enough
close to
time.
a
that
year.
Yeah, it was a time that could fit in appropriately with the
Yeah.
school that we were talking about. Thank,
That's what's happening.
Sounds good.
okay,
That's it for my.
Any questions for Joe
Nope.
and Holly? All right. Do we have need for executive session this morning, Mr. Dutkowsky?
We did not.
Okay, very good.
beautiful.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, moving in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those say nay. See everyone tomorrow night.
So, New York with the